Kecksburg used to be just like a lot of other small villages in western Pennsylvania. But in 1965, Kecksburg lost its anonymity when it became one of the world's most famous UFO landing sites.
I happened to look up in the sky, and I seen this red fireball.
It sure wasn't a meteor, because I've seen them fall before. I never seen any of them with blue lights on.
And it looked like it made a turn and come back again. And when it come back, it seemed like it went down.
It was December 9th, 1965, a night that many townspeople will never forget.
I got my flashlight, and I started down through the woods up to where it was at.
There was no wings. There was no tail section. There was no motors. There was no windows. There was no doors. It was big enough for a grown person to stand up in.
It had like Egyptian writing, like backwards writing on it.
Stars and circles and dashes and lines and things like that.
It looked like an acorn.
It was really weird.
Some claim the UFO wasn't the only thing to arrive that night.
It wasn't too much longer. Down through the woods come two gentlemen. The one gentleman, very ramrod straight, very authoritative voice, crew-cut hair. I mean, he just reeked of military. He looked at the object and looked at us. He says, all right, this is now a restricted area. Unions are all ordered out of here.
Some military people come to the house and said they'd like to use the phone. They sort of took the house over.
We started talking among ourselves, what's going on. About that time, up here on the road, comes a big flatbed truck in.
The flatbed went down and empty, and they come back out with something on the back of it covered up about the size of a Volkswagen.
That truck was hell-bent for leather, and if you'd have walked out on that road, you'd have still been there, because they'd have scraped you up with a putty knife. They weren't stopping for anything or anybody. And that began the real mystery of this whole thing.
27 years later, what happened down there in that woods surrounded by fields, if anything happened down there at all, is still a matter of bitter controversy.
You've got this town split into two groups. You got the believers and the non-believers.
There's been some friendship lost, and it's foolish as far as I'm concerned.
I have a brother-in-law that he hadn't spoke to me for 2 years, said that I lied about everything, but I never lied about a thing.
You got neighbors and neighbors that has known each other all their life. Now they don't want to talk because one believes it and one don't believe it.
Just as the town is divided, so too are experts who have researched what really happened in Kecksburg. Planetary expert Robert Young believes that some citizens may have perpetrated a hoax. He claims the UFO was merely a meteor known to have passed over Ontario and several northern states that evening.
Virtually all of the accounts can be explained by people having looked toward and seeing the Ontario meteor.
How about the accounts, though, of the military that turned out in large numbers, kept people away from going down there, a truck that went down into the area and came out? You got eyewitnesses that say, this happened.
Right, I understand it. I have written, signed eyewitness accounts from 61 local people who say that there was nothing crashed here or was recovered. There was no military occupation.
A lot of people probably think you're the government.
Well, sure, yeah, but I'm not.
I don't know how some people can say that nothing ever happened when there was so many people that saw things that night. Something had to happen.
I know what I saw, and I'm not going to deny it. They can tell me I'm lying, but I know that I seen the military in my house that night.
Freedom of Information Act states there was 212 military personnel here that night.
Who knows the truth about what really happened at Kecksburg? To try and find out, the Sci-Fi Channel decided to host an old-fashioned town meeting at the Kecksburg Fire Hall, drawing together naysayers, UFO public with their stories. So let me start with Chuck Hilland over here. Chuck, how serious are the divisions in this town over what did and didn't happen?
It's been a fairly divisive thing for the community, and I think that's been unfortunate.
Your dad owned the land where the event supposedly took. What'd your dad tell you?
My parents, I must tell you, really tend to believe that nothing very significant happened.
Who had direct knowledge? Go ahead, Mr. Steiner. We haven't heard from you before.
We seen it. It was low enough that the trees were blocking part of the view of this object. I have no idea what it was.
Could have been a meteor?
Well, originally that's what I thought it was.
Could have been space junk?
It could have been, but it was going on a steady pace.
Mm-hmm.
And it looked like it was a vehicle because it was controlled. It wasn't followed. It was just going on a level course.
So are these people making this stuff up?
I don't know.
All right, Mr. Betters, you're a young man, 65. But you say there were soldiers here. Almost 2 dozen.
Oh, more than that. I mean, that stopped us as about.
Why do so many people say there were no soldiers here?
I can't understand that.
Brian? Yeah, Mike Slater, another new witness. Go ahead.
That particular night, my brother and I were actually standing on the sidewalk. An Army Jeep pulled up. I said, hey, could you guys help us out? And, of course, at 14 years old, he said, yeah, sure, anything we can do. We're having a lot of problem with people coming up into the area. If anybody should ask for directions, could you give them the wrong directions? It'd be
Give
great.
them wrong directions.
Wrong directions. So all night long, we were sending them everywhere. Not only did we see the flatbed going up empty, we saw a flatbed coming down, loaded.
And they said he went down with the truck, and they caught it out with the truck. And where this thing landed, you wouldn't have got anything bigger than a Jeep there.
There was 3 vehicles come in there. And I'll lay my hand on the Bible and tell you this.
3 military vehicles.
Right.
That's all BS.
You're saying a vehicle couldn't get down there?
No way.
Did a flatbed go up? Yes, it went up. Did it come down? Yes. And was it loaded?
Why
Yes.
do you figure so many people then say there was no military here and no, there was no flatbed truck?
Why they didn't see it? I don't know. They were so visible.
How come the newspaper accounts didn't write about that?
I'm the guy that wrote some of the newspaper stories. And I did write about the military being there. When I pulled in, I said, well, there's nothing here. Go away. So I parked my car. I walked around. I started talking to people who were on the scene, who were watching.
How soon after this object landed were the military here?
Depending upon who you ask, within the hour.
Military don't track meteors and arrive that fast.
There's military, the state police, and also these people in business suits. And the people in the suits seem to have the authority and the power over the state police and the military.
Who thinks this is all a bunch of hooey? No disrespect intended.
It sounds like hooey to me, because it just does.
Well, they said the fire department was called out too, and it wasn't.
Because you were a volunteer fireman at the time.
I was here at the time. I was the only man in the bar at the time. The only man that could answer the phone at the time. There was no call to the fire department that night.
Even though they say there was?
Even though they say there was. They lie.
I remember pulling up in front of the fire hall, and there were a bunch of people here, and they told us to get out of town. We weren't wanted up here.
So that was your sole experience with it?
No. We never went out of town. We started looking around to find out what was going on. We made it up to the top of the hill, crossed the barbed wire. There was a military guy, Army, in his fatigues with a rifle, and stopped us right there.
This gentleman doesn't know the lay of the land up there. He doesn't know, and he probably doesn't either. How did they get the trucks in there?
Okay, but let's not talk about the trucks. He's saying that he came down here and there were military guys who pointed a gun at him and told him to get lost.
Up there, not down here.
So something happened somewhere in the area. You'll accept that?
Well, I agree. There was. He said he saw 2 military trucks up there. I'll go along with what he said.
The people who say, this is crazy, I haven't heard anybody have any explanation as to why it's crazy, other than just that it is.
And most of us all agree on one thing. And I think what a lot of us we want one answer, and that's basically from the military. Yes, you took something out, but they won't admit that. They won't admit presence. They won't admit that the fact that something was taken out.
You're smiling, young lady. How come?
They have the Roswell incident. I mean, the government has been covering up and lying to us for so many years. The military was here. The military does not come for stupid things.
Go ahead, Chief, and I'll let you have the last word.
28 years. I'm a fireman here at Kecksburg. It does me good as a young, old fireman now that now we know that something did happen. The military was here. Everybody here is correct in what they seen and what they heard. I think because of the lay of the land and the terrain, there was different points of vision from wherever they were at that point in time.
The outcome of our town meeting, a majority consensus that something big did happen in Kecksburg on December 9th, 1965, and that despite the official report to the contrary, soldiers were on site. More importantly, perhaps, townspeople on all sides of the debate finally had their voices heard.
I was out here working on my Corvair. I was putting a CB radio in it. Well, it was in it, but I was trying to get more power out of it, see where I could go with it, who I could get with it. And I happened to look up in the air, and I was down under the dash, and I could see this. I was looking up, and I seen this blue, like a bluish fireball or whatever you call it, up in the sky coming from Norvelt and going towards Laurelville, towards the mountain. And I thought, uh-oh. So I went out on the road and I watched it. You could see it. And it just seemed like if it wanted to go over the mountain and it couldn't go over the mountain. It just seemed like it hesitated. And then finally it come back and made a U-turn and went down into Kecksburg. I know that place up there. I went up the back road. So you overlook Kecksburg. You can see, I mean, you're way up. And I hunted up there a lot. I understood the place. So it was just about dark. So I grabbed my flashlight and I started down over the hill, down in the ravine and across the creek. And I looked up and it was in the patch of woods. And I could see it just looked like a bunch of kids playing with sparklers and it blew flame. And I could, closer I got to it, I could hear this sizzling noise, you know. And it just seemed like something was like you put the piece of steel in a bucket and it was cooling off, you know. And I went up and tried to get closer and closer and closer, and I got kind of scared of it, you know. So I had the flashlight on it, and I could see it, and it looked like my can up there, burnt orange. And it was still arcing, blue flames and coming out of it, and it's still sizzling, and it was embedded in the ground a little bit, where it come down in like belly landing. And I looked at it, and you could see it had a ring around the back end of it, and it had some kind of Egyptian marking on it or something. It looked like backward writing on it. I could see where the trees was all bent one way where it come in, but it just seemed like it come in like an airplane. It seemed like it was controlled. It come in real just like just glided right in and embedded itself right into the bank. And you know, like I said, it was all sealed. You couldn't see nothing. But if it had been anything else, it'd have come straight down and made a big hole in the ground. But this thing, when it come in, it just come in and glided right into the bank and embedded its front end in it, and that was the end of it.
Jim, I'm going to start with you. I want you to describe what you saw when you arrived in this field where the supposed downed aircraft was.
Well, first of all, we were in a field hunting for this downed aircraft, and the first rescue team already found it and radioed into the fire hall, gave the coordinates, and it was down in front of us, and we hightailed it out of our search area, went down into there, and we got there expecting a smashed up airplane. Wings, fuselage, etc. No such character. Came down through the woods, and here's this humongous piece of metal laying there. I mean, this thing I've described time and time again as a very large acorn-shaped object. The front of it, or I presume was the front of it, was pushed down into the dirt where the way it came in and landed after it took out the top of the trees and brush and everything coming in. Came back in an oblong shape. Around the bottom was what I call a bumper, and then the bottom was perfectly flat. No signs of propulsion or anything. There was no doors, no windows. There was no ways of getting in this thing, at least none that I seen. There was no seams on it, no rivets, nothing. The only thing I seen was this bumper around it and it had these real strange markings on it, which I've often referred to as similar to the ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics. So, as a volunteer fireman, we did what we were supposed to do. Find the crash site, do a preliminary investigation for survivors or treat anybody with it, which we didn't because there was none that we could see. There was no way of getting in this object. The first team had already radioed in its position. We're there 10, 15 minutes all talking around, doing a preliminary search, wondering what we discovered. Two gentlemen come down through the woods, trench coats on, ramrod stiff, crew cut. All right, this is a restricted area. You're now ordered to get out of here. Now, wait a minute, I'm a civilian. You ain't going to order me nothing. But as a fireman, I'm being relieved from what I'm doing. So I got out of there. We're going out through the woods. We didn't go no more than 15, 20 feet. And I know from me to you, Here come the military, full uniforms, equipment, marching right down through the woods with flashlights. This is December. It's late in the evening, it's cold, it's wet.
How far away were you from a military base?
Well, the closest base that I knew of was Pittsburgh, which was approximately 45 miles to the west.
So within 15 minutes of your arrival at the site, the military was there?
You got it.
Okay. What did they say to you after this happened? I mean, I know there were several members of the report I saw in Unsolved Mysteries, several members of the community were there, people, right? Other people that were part of the community were there and present and were all told to leave.
There was no press or media at the immediate crash site.
Mm-hmm.
What I didn't know up on top of the hill, because I'd come in through the side, the military had taken over a farmhouse. I mean, from what I understand, military brass. They took over up there, did all their orders and whatever they were doing from up there, and that's where I presume that the military who came down through the woods came from. Because when we went out, we had to walk back to the fire hall, which was approximately the way we had to go, I'd say a good mile. But by the time we got back to the fire hall, it was wall-to-wall military. I mean, there was trucks and jeeps and cars. There was guards on the door.
Did anybody say to you, I don't want you talking about this, don't say a word about this, or were you, with that term, debriefed?
What they did, I mean, these people virtually told us just to shut up, get to your vehicles, and be quiet.
And you did what you were told?
One of the guys even asked the guards at the door, look, I got to go to the bathroom. Now, these guys are standing there with weapons. Whether they were loaded or not, I don't know. None of us was brave enough to try to find out. He said, I got to go to the bathroom. They said, see those weeds over there? Use them. Well, by that time, we just headed for the trucks.
I was approximately 10 years old. I was playing with another friend of mine out in the middle of an open field by a creek. And I heard a noise and looked to the, I believe it was northwest. And we saw an object coming at us. We could see it a pretty good distance away. We watched it come, fly over top of us, and leave our vision. The object was sort of acorn-shaped. It had a raised area around the back. It was a brownish, grayish color. There was fire coming out of the back of it. It had a rounded part on the very tip of it. It also seemed to be covered with some type of vapor wrapped around it as it flew over. It made a hissing noise. It was probably only 200 feet in the air when we saw it, and we saw it for a good distance coming at us. It had a reddish, yellowish flame, and it also had a greenish color in the flames. When it passed over us, it was probably only 200 feet in the air at the most, and it was moving no faster than a small aircraft. In fact, we saw it from a good piece away, probably a couple miles away, and were able to watch it approach us, fly over us, and fly away from us. So it wasn't moving very fast at all. Well, I know what I saw, and it definitely wasn't a meteor. I really can't explain what it was, but it certainly seemed to be a constructed thing. You know, it had smooth edges and smooth lines, and didn't appear to be a meteor at all to me.
The very unique thing about the object, there was no signs whatsoever of any type of propulsion unit on it. I have described this object in shape as a huge acorn because it had a sloped side to it, and then it came back, and it was lifted up a little bit in the back like there was a bumper going the whole way around it, and then it dropped down and came straight down the back. But on this bumper was these geometrical and all kind of designs. I have used the terminology, it reminded me of the ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics. Whether or not that was an exact description, I don't know. There was lines, there was zigzag lines and stars and circles and all kind of various different little shapes. Like I said, it looked like someone took a welding rod and just welded a bead for in some type of different designs. The bumper itself was had radiuses coming off of the surface of the object, came up, went around, and again another radius and back to the surface of the object. To me, it resembled like somebody cast this out of metal. I mean, you couldn't see a seam, a break, nothing in it, even where the bumper was. This is just one big shape of metal, and then the back was perfectly smooth. Like I said, I didn't see no doors, no windows, no portholes, no engines, no nothing. There was nothing sticking out. There was no cracks, no rivets, no weld seams, nothing. This is why I use the word impact area, because to me, right away, I thought, uh-oh, I know that we were in outer space at the time. Maybe one of these big satellites or something we shot up came down. But also in the same token, looking at these writings or hieroglyphics, whatever they were nothing I've ever seen.
The control tower at the Greater Pittsburgh Airport definitely confirmed the fact that there was an object in the sky at that time, 13 minutes before 5.
I was employed at WHJB Radio in Greensburg. At this particular time, I was in the capacity of bookkeeper and office manager. For some reason or other, I stayed over that evening at the radio station, and there was a number of calls started to come in about 5:30, somewhere around there, concerning a sighting of a saucer or a UFO or some kind of an unidentified object in Kecksburg, Pennsylvania. As time went on, the calls became more frequent and more steady. We received a lot of calls from a number of radio stations and TV stations. Of course, at first I thought, these are just a bunch of people, playing pranks. Well, as the evening went on, I realized something definitely did happen. And they were serious and they were excited and there was full of emotion. Some of the calls, whenever I was taking those, as I say, after about 6 o'clock or so, they started to reach outlying areas. And I was getting calls from TV stations and radio stations all over the United States. And then I started to get these calls from the military and the Air Force. I remember specifically the Air Force and the Pentagon. And I thought, oh, somebody's playing a crank. Why would the Pentagon call here about something like this? Okay, when the military was calling me concerning this UFO sighting at Kecksburg, they were asking me directions. They were asking me where it was, etc. And I was giving them specific directions from Pittsburgh because they were flying in. I don't know, but they were coming in from Washington, D.C., and they needed specific directions. So I did give them directions, and I also gave them the telephone number of the radio station that if they got halfway out there, they could call me again.
We were in a restaurant, and there was someone came in, and I don't remember who it was at that time because that there was a craft or a meteor that landed over in Kecksburg. So there was 3 of us got in a vehicle and we drove over to the site. And we didn't really know that there were military or anything there at that time. What we were back then were just curious teenagers. So we attempted to get into the site. And we no more than got out of the car and walked down through the field. We didn't get very far, and there was at the point where we tried to get in there was one armed military there that said that we were not allowed in, and we asked him why not. And he said there was a meteor that landed. Well, back then I didn't even think twice, for the fact that there could have been something other than a meteorite. So what we did, we took from the one site where we were, from the one part of the road where we tried to get in, we walked down around the field and we tried to get in another area where there was a place to, where we thought we could get in to see the craft that landed there. And well, I say craft, but at this point, but I never got in. So we tried to get in there, but there was another armed military down in there, and they would not leave us in. So we just turned around and we left. I would have to say that the military that we saw there, they were calm about the fact, that we were there. That I couldn't see any hysteria or anything of that nature. The only thing they showed authority that they didn't want us in the area and told us to leave. There was no pushing or anything at that point in time. Whenever I was there, they just told us to leave, and we just did that. We just got in the car and left.
I lived out on the Greensburg Mount Pleasant Road, which was heading in towards Kecksburg if you kept following it. I was walking my baby, a crying baby, at the picture window when we see all the activity that goes on, traffic up and down the Greensburg Mount Pleasant Road. My husband had listened to the radio and heard that there was a fallen object, and we were watching the traffic back and forth because there was a lot of police cars, and there was just a lot of traffic up and down the road. And we did see, after an hour and a half or so, a convoy, and there was a flatbed truck, and just a typical convoy like you would see on the road where they're going to camp, with quite a few Army trucks.
Went back to an old farmhouse on the end of the lane, and our truck was there, and several other firemen were there with it. Well, we gathered around there, and they talked about different things there for a while, and finally here comes a military truck in the same lane that I had just come in. It was a personnel carrier and a 6x6 Army truck with a canopy on the back. So they stopped at our truck, and they said they were going down into this ravine. Well, a couple of us asked, I don't know the officer's rank or nothing, but he was a highly ranked officer from the, I don't even know if it was the Air Force or the Army, but he was from the military. So we asked him if we could go down there with him, and he said no. He said nobody's going down there with us. They took the 6x6 down, and they must have stayed down there, I'd say approximately a half hour, and then they came back up out of there. And they stopped at the same place. They had, I don't know how many men was there with the truck, with the military, but they told us that they were done with our trucks, that we could take it back to the station. So we took our truck there, which I didn't go back to the station there. I lived up near this area, and so I went on home. And the military left. They took that 6x6 truck out of there.
A little later on that evening, I decided to take a walk into Kecksburg, and you could see military everywhere. I mean, no matter where you looked at, there was military on the corners, up and down the roads. And then if I took a walk a little further down from the store where I was standing, you could see right down to the fire hall. And you could see the military vehicle sitting down there. You could tell they were military because of the, I don't know, like an off green uniform. They had helmets on their heads. As in for Kecksburg by the store and up the road and down the road a little bit. I'd say maybe there was 10, 12 of them standing there. They were armed with rifles, sidearm. And as for me, a kid about 15, 16 years old, I mean, that was pretty exciting, to see all the military there, all the vehicles. And that's something you don't really forget too easily. And as for those people that did say that there was nothing there, I don't know why they're saying it, because it happened. It actually happened.
When we first was aware of this, my husband was in the living room listening to the radio, and he heard the announcement there was a fireball fell in Acme. So he came out and he told me, and we went outside and we're looking up towards Acme to see any smoke or whatever, and there was nothing. So we come back in the house and he's listening, and there was reports again, and I was in the living room with him, and when I walked out in the kitchen, I happened to glance out the window to the road behind the house, and I started laughing. I says, that isn't in Acme, it's right here in our backyard. So he come out, and then we walked out along the garden, seeing what we could see, and we heard a lot of people talking. We seen the cars. And there was a smell that night, like sulfur. And he was saying maybe it's the furnace. So we didn't pay too much attention. We went back in the house, and we was there for a while, and he walked out. My husband went out, and he was checking around, and the first thing he come in, he had, I'm pretty sure, but not positive, that it was state cops that come in first and wanted to use the phone. And when they went out, he was out a little bit, and then the military. He bring the military in, and he told me they want to use the phone. At one point when he came in, he says that they're calling in NASA to then there we had military in there off and on all evening, some in uniforms, some in plain clothes, but there was important people. You could just tell by their way they acted, and mostly just seen groups talking among themselves, but I couldn't hear what they were saying. But they used the phone quite a bit that evening, and there was never no phone calls on my bill where they went to. And some other people that was in the house kept coming in at different times, and they would sort of meet in there, and they was talking in groups. There was, I know one is a sort of tall guy. He had a beret on, and it seemed to me that it was a dark blue uniform on. He was military. There was no doubts about that. And then there was a lot of ones that was in civilian clothes. One in particular was a short one, heavy set with a jacket on. And I don't remember what kind of pants he had on. Too long ago.
I just went to bed and heard a knock on the door. So I went downstairs to see what was going on and found out that there was some military people there. And when they seen me, they asked my dad to send me back to bed. And before that, I had already seen all cars and stuff lined up again on the roads and on the driveway, because we got windows all around the house. And my bedroom window faced everything that was going on. Our bathroom was downstairs, so I made quite a few trips to the bathroom at night just to see what was going on down there. I seen people in well, at the time I didn't know, their rank or their service, but since then I've been in the service myself, so I know some of them was Air Force and some of them was Army, just by the uniforms they was wearing. And I seen them on the phones. I did hear one time when I was downstairs that NASA was on their way. And it was right after, it was not long after that, I heard a knock on the door. I looked out the window above where the door was at, and I seen some men standing in white coverall type suits and the one had a NASA patch on it. And right after that, everybody left. I went back upstairs and was watching out my window. I seen trucks and flashlights and all kinds of things going on, people running around. There was cars and trucks all along the highway, or all along the driveway. In fact, they was all on the highway on the other side of the hill, too. But I seen a truck come from the driveway. It went down through the gully in the field, went right down the hollow. The field where they went down through, there was a gate there, but it's always wet right there. So they went straight down the hollow. So they cut the fence in the hollow, went down straight in the hollow. Once you get down in a little bit, you can't really see nothing from the house. You can see lights and stuff. They had everything lit up. I seen a truck going down in, a flatbed going down in, and it went down in empty, come out with something on the back of it about the size of a Volkswagen. Next day I got up. We decided we was going to go down and check things out. I went over and the fence was down. I had to put the fence back up because we had cows down in there. Me and my brother walked down through the woods, sneaked down through the woods, and we could see where somebody had covered up an area that was in a little dry wash. We could see treetops busted off and trees busted down. We went on down over the hill and over onto the other side. And when we got on the other side, we seen a guy over there. He had looked like a treasure finder, one of those little hand things, they walk around with. And he chased us out of the woods. He told us there was a chance of radiation over there. I was 10 years old at the time. And I'll tell you what, to me it was exciting. I mean, I seen all these here military people running around. I seen all these people outside running around. Seen all these cars and trucks. And it's coming over the radio. It's UFO that crashed. And it was exciting to me. A little kid ain't going to forget something like that.
I was riding around in my car. I had a red Olds convertible. I was listening to the radio, WHJB, and they come over and said that there was an object landed in Kecksburg. So I come upon some people standing along the road, and I pulled off onto a farm road, went back there, and I seen some more other people standing. I parked my car, got out, I went over to those people. I looked down into a small ravine. It was some scrub trees, that type of thing down in there. I could see there was something was down there, but I couldn't tell what it was. I could see there was a bright light coming from it. We stood around, we talked. I went and got a spotlight out of my car. I was going to play that down in there to see if I could get a better idea of what it was. A fella come up out of the, up through the field, I'll put it that way, up through the field, and told me to put the spotlight away. He used a commanding voice type of thing, such as maybe he was a policeman or whatever, but he was just dressed in street clothes. I put the light away at that point. A little while later, there was a large truck pulled in, a light-colored truck, a box van type. Out of it, there was 4 guys come out. They had what we called moon suits at the time. They were white coverall type suit. They took a box out of there. It was a box maybe 4 or 5 foot square. They carried down 4 handles, and they carried that down to the object. About just right after that, there was a military man come over to the car, and he told us to leave. And I got into an argument with him. And told him I didn't, I wanted to stay. I didn't want to leave. At that point, he told me that he would confiscate my car if I didn't. So we then, myself and the other people, we pulled out, left, and they made sure we were out of the area and wouldn't let us back in.
I was standing by the Kecksburg store, and down off of Snake Hill comes a Jeep. And then right behind it was a military flatbed truck with an object on it. And it was covered over with a tarp. And the way it was covered and tied, you could tell and see a shape of whatever the object was. And the object was like a acorn shape. And behind it was like another military vehicle. I'm not exactly sure if it was a Jeep or a truck. And they went down past the Pepsi plant. And if you got in their way, at the speed that they were going, you would never gotten out of the way.
All of a sudden, down over this hill, here comes a Jeep with a red light on it. Here comes a flatbed truck. But this time on the back of that flatbed truck was a very large tarped object. And to me, I would say the size of the object on the back of the truck, even though it was covered with a tarp, was just about the size of the object that had been laying up in the impact area. Behind that flatbed truck was another Jeep with its red light on. Now, they come down that road hell-bent for leather. And I'll tell you what, I've used the expression that if anybody would have ever walked out on that road, they'd have scraped them up with a putty knife because they wasn't stopping for nobody.
After I called my friend up, and he's driving me up there, he's like I'm crazy, okay, but I'll take you up there. So when we go up this dirt road, when I see these soldiers, I'm elated because I know what I heard had to be true, because all these Army people there, I just felt happy because I knew, what I heard, it was true. And they were standing there with their guns and everything. Then out of the woods came this Army truck, khaki color with a big white star on it. It had this UFO in the back of it. Then I was so excited. My heart was beating a mile a minute because I always believed in these things, and to see it, was really something. That's when this officer came down, very nasty. He hollered, "Get these people out of here!" And with these guys, they cocked their guns and put them on us. And I was begging the people I was with, "Come on, let's park and pull over in the woods or something like that. I want to see this." But they were pretty nasty to us. They did have the guns pointed at us. There was an Army truck, a long flatbed on it. It was long enough to hold this thing, to set this thing on it. And it was like, to me, it looked copperish looking. Maybe it was burn or something, but it was copperish looking. It was big. What I would be expecting to see if I was going to see UFO would be just a great big, flat circular thing. But this was different. It was domed. It had the fringe out. And I saw the hieroglyphics on it.
We drove to a place near the village of Kecksburg, just a nondescript rural area. I remember it being a narrow, typical country road. I believe there was a fence on the side. There were a lot of people there. You wouldn't get this amount of people out in the middle of the country for just to look at the moon or what have you on a winter night or early winter, late fall, I guess it was. So we pulled off along the shoulder, and what I remember seeing was across a field, maybe 100 yards away, near a tree line, what appeared to be a military tractor trailer, flatbed tractor trailer, moving out of the tree line. And on the back, there was something under a tarpaulin, something that couldn't be seen. It wasn't particularly large, though, probably, I don't know, the size of a couple of suitcases, maybe, something of that nature. But it was difficult to see it. Then I recall the next day when I read Bob Gaddy's story with the official explanation that it had been a meteor that people had seen in the sky, but the meteor hadn't landed there. It landed somewhere else, if it landed at all. I was really disappointed by that explanation because there was just too much activity down there. too much of a reaction to this report of a UFO for it to be nothing at all. There had to be something, I thought.
A lot of people feel the same as I do. It was a Russian rocket or satellite, that type of thing. You know, if you read the newspapers at the time, listened to television at the time, the United States was trying to put up some spaceships or whatever you want to call them, rockets, same way with the Russians.
To this day, 30 years later, I still don't know what the object was. My own personal feeling was that I stumbled upon an interplanetary spaceship of some caliber.
I know what I seen, and I know it happened, because the military was in my house, along with a lot of other ones.
I'd be willing to, yes, to testify under oath what I saw that night, the military being there, and I would testify.
Well, no matter what all has been said about this, I know what I saw and can still remember it as it happened the day I saw it, and I would be willing to testify under oath as to what I saw.
Willing to take a polygraph test or whatever they'd want me to do to show that I'm telling the truth of what I seen. To me, it looked like it was from outer space. I mean, another country or something like that. I mean, who controlled it? How did it get in there so easy? I mean, how did it didn't go down and dig a big hole? It came in just like if it was controlled. Somebody had control of it. Now, you know, it was all one piece. There was no windows, no well mark, or no nothing, no rivets, no nothing. It was just one solid piece.